Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Healthy Native North Carolinians Network webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Randy Bird, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at the American Indian Center at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'll be co-facilitating today's webinar. But before we get started, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping notes with our participants. We're going to ask everyone if you can mute your phones. This is going to help us to avoid some background noise so everyone can hear. Also, there's going to be an opportunity for you to type questions in a box to the right of your screen, and we'll be stopping periodically throughout the webinar just to answer some of those questions for you. And just as a reminder, you probably saw in the email that I sent out yesterday, we will be recording today's webinar, so in case there's community members who didn't have a chance to join us today, we will be sharing the link via email afterwards. And it will be linked to our website at the American Indian Center as well. So the conversation we'll be having today is around connecting people to the land through triple bottom line partnerships. And the information will be tailored to the Healthy Native North Carolinians Network. Healthy Native North Carolinians is administered by the American Indian Center at UNC Chapel Hill and is generously supported by the Kate V. Reynolds Charitable Trust. The network is comprised of North Carolina tribal nations as well as urban Indian organizations and supports self-determined community changes around healthy eating and active living. Today's webinar is co-hosted by the Conservation Fund's Resourceful Communities Program and the UNC American Indian Center. We have several resource partners with us today in the room that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before we start, I'd like to explain a little bit about why we're gathered today and how this webinar relates to health and wellness in Native communities. We know that for American Indian communities, addressing health alone can be very challenging. We've heard this time and time again through calls and just our conversations with you. Tribal leaders are faced with numerous priorities of importance to your communities. And most tribes in our urban organizations have limited or no staff, as well as limited financial resources to help address your goals. So in the words of Resourceful Communities, and you'll hear about this today, when challenges are approached as separate problems, solutions tend to be short-term. This is why we're gathered here today. We know that through the network, through Healthy Native North Carolinians, projects that have been very successful have had a holistic approach, not only to just addressing health, but to addressing economic development, addressing cultural preservation, investments, capacity building for your communities, and equipment and infrastructure to support tribes and organizations long term. So it's not just about health, it's about meeting your community needs on a broad level. We're hopeful that through today's webinar, our tribal partners will learn about resources, opportunities, grants that may help to sustain and grow your Healthy Native North Carolinians efforts, but particularly as they're related to developing or expanding walking trails, running trails, kayak trails along rivers, community gardens, farmers markets, even reestablishing native plants and habitats. The resources you're going to hear about today are not only related to health, but environmental stewardship, sustainable economic development, social justice, all of which we know play a role in health initiatives in North Carolina's Indian communities. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our co-hosts and our wonderful partners at the Conservation Fund's Resourceful Communities Program. We have with us today Mickey Sager. She is the Vice President of the Conservation Fund and the Director of Resourceful Communities. We have Donna Pratt, who is the Program Associate for Resourceful Communities. Kathleen Marks, Associate Director for Resourceful Communities. Ricky Bratz, who is the Healthy Eating Active Living Coordinator for Resourceful Communities. And Jasmine Varela, who is the Information Manager, or as her team has called her, the goddess of all things at Resourceful Communities. They're all playing a role, and we're so thankful that they're able to spend their time and their skills and their resources with us today to make this webinar possible. And I just want to add, on a personal level, I don't think you can find a finer group of people to work with. We love and enjoy working with the Conservation Fund and Resourceful Communities. They share so many of our values at the American Indian Center, and their work is truly rooted in self-determination of the communities in which they serve. I can truly say that we've enjoyed the partnerships that we've had with them thus far, and we look forward to many other partnerships. In fact, in the coming year, we're going to look forward to a robust partnership with them and multiple opportunities for our tribal partners to build relationships with them. And hopefully today this will spark an interest. If you haven't already connected with them, again, you're going to hear about many skills and opportunities to partner. So thank you so much to Resourceful Communities, and at this time we'll hear more from Mickey Sager, who is again the Director of Resourceful Communities. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you, Randy, and good morning, everyone. It is both a pleasure and, believe me, a real privilege to partner with the UNC American Indian Center. We likewise have never found another group that is so aligned with us in values, in how we do our work, and in how we work with, not, with communities rather than doing to them or doing for them. Speaking of health and wellness, I do want to say that, acknowledge that we very much appreciate everybody being on the call this morning in light of all the weather events yesterday, and we certainly hope everybody came through yesterday okay. Very quickly, we're going to just go through the overview of what we'll be talking about this morning. We will start by talking about the Conservation Fund, which is a national nonprofit. The reason we give you this context is because we have resources and we have access as a national conservation group to leverage our standing in the conservation movement, to leverage our national presence, to leverage many, many tools and techniques that are vitally important to helping communities be self-determined. We will then talk about resourceful communities and how we work, the trends that we are starting to see in that we continue to see in communities across North Carolina. We will talk about our triple bottom line approaches, which, as Randy said, addresses sustainable economic development, social justice, and environmental stewardship. In fact, we look at social justice as the foundation on which the other two bottom lines are built. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about impacts and partnerships, give some examples of partnerships that where we've provided resources or partnered with the community to help something really amazing happen. Then that will be it. So I will now turn it over to Donna Pratt, who will talk about the Conservation Fund.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the Conservation Fund and Resourceful Communities. The Conservation Fund is a national nonprofit. It's unique in the conservation field because it has a dual mission. We protect working lands and waterways like farms and forests, and we also promote economic development. The fund was established in 1985. Nationally, it's protected more than 7.5 million acres of land. And right here in North Carolina, we've established the DuPont State Forest, Grandfather Mountain State Park, and Pocosin Lakes National Wildlife Refuge. Okay, I won't spend a lot of time on the Conservation Fund's many programs, but we basically have 3 business units. They include land protection, which helps protect important places and creates new parks. We also provide a loan capital for land acquisition. In the Conservation Ventures, it includes the Natural Capital Investment Fund, which provides low-interest loans to natural resource-based businesses like farms, woodworking, and they've even funded a microbrewery. It also includes the Working Forest Fund, which acquires large tracts of forest. It protects the important places, it makes a stewardship plan, and keeps the rest of the forest in timber production, which also provides jobs for local communities. In our sustainable programs, it includes planning, aquaculture research, and of course the best one is resourceful communities. We have a range of skills we have a range of skills that include land protection, forestry, lending, community development, and also GIS mapping. Resourceful Communities has a network of 500 community organizations and faith-based groups across North Carolina. Our work is built, as Mickey has said, is built on the triple bottom line. We integrate social justice, community economic development, and environmental stewardship in that. Most of our community partners work in rural communities, and of course they face a lot of challenges. We help by providing training, small grants, and networking. We'll tell you a little bit more about this later on in the presentation. And now Mickey's going to talk to you about some of our background and why we do what we do.
Thanks so much, Donna. And just to clarify a little bit too, even though we are the best of the Conservation Fund, we actually work, we are able to partner with our other programs, bring other programs to the table to help. So for example, we are currently working with the Natural Capital Investment Fund on a special Farmers of Color initiative to help farmers gain access to accounting support for their operations. So that is one of the things that we will be sure to send Randy some information about that so she can share that with you and your tribal members. So to talk about why we do what we do, the reason we use triple bottom line approaches is because we have seen time and time again that people need to be able, as they told us a long time ago, to figure out how to make money off the land without messing it up. If you were to map, which we have done on this slide, the most important natural systems, the ones that are relatively intact in the state of North Carolina, you've got the coastal plain in the east, that's Meherrin and Halawasponi lands. The sandhills down around the bottom, that's Lumbee-Coharie and Waccamaw-Siouan. And then out in the southern Appalachian Mountains, the Cherokee lands. Those are the most significant lands ecologically. Next slide. But if you also then overlay, as Jasmine has helped us do here, the Tier 1 counties, which are the blobs in blue, you can see that there's a direct geographic overlap of persistent poverty, the poorest counties, and those ecosystems. The other, when you map the other issues like food deserts, food swamps, poor health outcomes, those are also in those same ecosystems. The counties with the highest incidence of those problems are in those three ecosystems. So we can't expect people to say, well, we need to protect the land if they are trying to put food on the table or help their kids have shoes for school. I do want to mention that one of the resources that we are pretty shameless about sharing with our partners as well are things like this GIS mapping. It's both a powerful tool for analyzing and understanding the issues in communities as well as for storytelling. Next slide. So the reason we do what we do the way we do it is because, so if we were to do a survey of our partners, our colleagues in the environmental world, they would say that, well, the real problems with environmental degradation are the landfills, the hog farms, the chemical plants, development. The reality, though, is in those areas, where you find those kinds of things happening, it is really the social and economic distresses that are the root causes of the community decisions being made that are bringing in those landfills and the hog farms and the chemical plants. So when you have severe poverty, when you have, where people are being told that every landfill is going to bring in 200 jobs, the local government officials are going to make a decision, even though I've never seen a landfill that brought in 200 jobs. They will say, we have poverty, so we need jobs. There's very, very prevalent, the presence of racism, classism, all the isms that tribal communities have experienced for hundreds and hundreds of years. Who has the power and who doesn't have the power? If people are disenfranchised, if they are never invited to the table, if economic development is being done in the back rooms where people are not invited, those are the reasons that all those environmentally degrading things are happening. If people don't have either educational attainment, or if they just plain don't understand, are not educated, are not informed about how traditional economic development happens, that will again be the reason that a handful of people will make a decision that will impact the entire community, usually not just to the environmentally degrading, these are also socially and economically degrading activities as well. So the reality is people and communities cannot focus only on environmental protection, but have to address all these issues simultaneously. And now I will turn it over to Kathleen Marks, our Associate Director.
Thank you, Mickey. Again, this is Kathleen Marks, and you just heard from Donna and Mickey, who gave a really good overview of our work and why we do what we do, and I'm going to share a little bit about what we do now. We have 3 primary program strategies: training and technical assistance, direct funding through small grants, and what we call facilitated networking. Next slide. So first I'm going to tell you about our small grants program. We call it the Creating New Economies Fund, and through it we provide grants up to $15,000. They average $8,000 to $12,000, and the grant funding can support just about any type of project as long as it has triple bottom line components. So again, Mickey mentioned the triple bottom line, and the projects just need to incorporate social justice issues, community economic development, and environmental stewardship. That means that funding can support anything from eco and heritage tourism, environmental health efforts, sustainable agriculture, youth leadership, and also the grant funding can be used to pay for the light bill, to pay for staffing, so it's a very broad grant program. One key piece of this grant program is that we pair it with what we call capacity building. So we know that community partners have wonderful ideas and are doing amazing work for their communities, and we provide some skills building in companion with the grants to help develop effective work plans, evaluation plans, and also connect to other resources. The leverage for the small grants program is pretty impressive. For every $1 invested, grantees have averaged about $12 of leveraged additional support. Next slide, please. These are some examples of community programs that have been funded through our small grants program. They include Waterfowl Park, a value-added project over on the right in eastern North Carolina. Really interesting program in the Sandhills that's working with formerly incarcerated youth to flip a prison and make it an agriculture education center. We're working with some family fishermen on the Outer Banks too. Next slide, please. We also provide free of charge training and technical assistance to help people build skills to deliver more effective community programs. Our trainings usually take the forms of workshops, regional workshops that we offer each fall and spring. And again, those are free of charge, and we also do what we can to make sure folks can participate. So we provide mileage reimbursement, lodging if it's needed. We also provide meals on site. It's very important to us that we understand that it's hard to commit your time to take your time away from your community and make these trainings, so we do what we can to make it as accessible as possible. The trainings typically focus on particular skills and feature partner presentations from successful projects that can oftentimes be replicated back home for participants. We also provide technical assistance as much as our capacity can deliver, and the technical assistance usually takes two routes. Sometimes we provide what we call project planning, so again, that can be helping you move forward a successful project. That might include developing a work plan, thinking through evaluation strategies to measure your impacts, identifying good community engagement strategies, and we also do what we call organizational development technical assistance. And that's really focused on strengthening your organization and making sure your organization is sustainable. That might include strategic planning, board development, looking at big picture issues your organization is challenged by. Again, this is delivered at no cost, and it's tailored to the technical assistance recipient, and it's typically delivered on site. Next slide, please. These are just some examples of our workshops that have featured social justice choir, different presentations from community partners. Next slide, please. So the final strategy we employ is what we call facilitated networking. We believe it's very, very important for community organizations to connect with other community practitioners. There are a lot of lessons learned and oftentimes a lot of collaboration opportunities, especially if you're dealing with the same challenges or working on the same types of projects. We also do our best to connect our community partners with other resource organizations. These resources might provide funding, they might provide other training, anything that can really help you advance your work. We do this through annual gatherings we call convenings, and again, these are free of charge. And we really do look at ways to just help connect people across the board. Oftentimes folks are so focused on their own challenges and their own goals that it's very, very helpful to hear from other folks about what strategies they've been successful with. Next slide, please. And these are just a couple of examples of our convening. Down in the lower left, you see our Healthy Eating, Active Living convening. We try to get people moving, so we had a big dance party. Up in the upper right corner, that's a farmer's market in Greene County, Laney Woods Farmer's Market. We did what we call a peer learning visit. It's kind of like a grown-up field trip, and we go visit a successful project and hear from the community leaders about what resources they've needed, what has worked for them, what their challenges have been, and folks actually get to practice something. So this was a market that had just recently implemented SNAP EBT, and the participants on the peer learning visit actually got to practice using the tokens and talking with the vendors about how that whole process works. I'm going to just pause before I pass things to Ricky Bratz. I want to see if anybody has any questions. I know we shared a lot of information, and we welcome questions from anyone on the call. And you can also type in your questions in the dialog box on the right-hand side of your computer screen. So we'll just pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions, and then I'm going to pass things to Ricky Bratz, our Healthy Eating, Active Living coordinator. All right, so we're going to move along, and Ricky Bratz is going to share some information about some initiatives we've launched.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our main initiatives through Resourceful Communities. Of course, we utilize the small grants, technical assistance, and facilitated networking as strategies within these initiatives. And so one of the initiatives we have that I work most closely with is our Healthy Eating, Active Living initiative. And the purpose of that is to increase access to local healthy food and opportunities for physical activity. We also have a food and farm initiative in which we build more inclusive local food systems, connecting low resource producers and consumers. And our newest initiative is our Faith in Food initiative, although we've been working with faith communities for quite some time. And we build rural churches' capacities to participate in and strengthen local food economies. And within all three of these initiatives, we really lift up the connection to land and natural resources and community health. As you can see, food and access to physical activity are often connected to the natural environment. So we do place a pretty strong emphasis on that. And then the photo in the corner is a youth kayaking program that we funded with an organization called Sound Rivers. And they actually implemented a program in which they trained local youth and really aimed their participants who really didn't have access to recreational opportunities on the river. So this person is having quite a nice time, it looks like. So that's just an example of the type of things that we might fund under the Healthy Eating or Active Living initiative. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about trends in communities. The 3 initiatives I just mentioned were actually born out of seeing the persistent need in communities around access to healthy food and outdoor recreational activity. And these are some of the other things that we've seen in our 25 years of working with grassroots community partners. We have a pretty unique vantage point in being able to work statewide with communities, and we've really seen some common concerns and community challenges over the time that we've worked within the state. So we've seen over time persistent social, economic, and environmental challenges. Again, that's the triple bottom line. We've seen community groups are addressing growing needs, especially related to health and food. And again, that's part of how our initiatives have been born out of the needs of our community and our response to that. We've seen the need for capacity building. As Kathleen mentioned, our technical assistance really addresses supporting organizations who might have unpaid staff, who are working on community engagement issues, wanting to cultivate and expand leadership within their organization or community, as well as helping plan programming. Next slide. We also see inequitable partnerships. And so part of the support of resourceful communities is either to leverage our own position and access to resources or to support partners with more skills building in how to advocate for their community needs. We see trends around rural, urban, and east and west, mostly around geography and access to resources. We also see growing economic and social disparities and strengthening the environmental and land-based, land and water-based components of communities' work. So these are a lot of issues that, again, we have seen over time and given our position working statewide. Thank you.
Next slide. This is Mickey Saker again. And I suspect that many of those trends that Ricky mentioned are trends that you're seeing in your own communities, as well as there are other trends, but we might be here for 47 days if we tried to talk about all the depressing things happening in rural North Carolina. On the flip, so basically the reason we work to address the triple bottom line, we work to achieve environmental stewardship, sustainable economic development, and social justice, is because we have seen time and time and time again that when you try to address just one little piece of a challenge or one little part of an issue you're seeing in your community, the solutions tend to be short term. If you want sustainable change, you need to address the social, economic, and environmental issues in a balanced approach. You need to integrate the solutions that you're working for. Next slide. Some examples of some of the environmental issues and challenges that we're seeing. A lot of issues around poor water quality. The example in Coharie country is the gravel pit that someone in Sampson County is trying to put in on a creek, or tried to put in on a creek that flows directly into the Great Coharie River. On the flip side, the solution of the Great Coharie River Initiative is actually helping to restore the river habitat, providing job skills, and reconnecting tribal members to the river and the cultural connections that are so inherent in the land and water. We're seeing people losing natural habitats like forests and streams. We're seeing people losing land ownership, which is a huge issue. Many environmental folks might not say that that's an environmental issue, but it absolutely is, particularly when those landowners are farmers or people who have kept the land in the natural habitat. Young people are losing their connection to the outdoors. We're losing our farmlands, especially the small farms, and especially, with disproportionately high loss of those small farms among farmers of color, in particular the African American and Native American farmers. There's a lot of landfills going in because of those root causes of people making decisions, and there's wasteful consumption of energy and water. Next slide. Just a handful of the economic issues and challenges that are being seen in tribal communities and rural North Carolina generally. Lack of jobs, loss of jobs, and income. Unemployment is always talked about, but very few people talk about underemployment, and that is a huge issue in our rural communities, where somebody has to either work and live way, way, way below the poverty line, or they have to work 3 jobs to just try to get through. There's a lack of businesses in the communities, and a lot of that is because it's a social justice issue as well, because there's a lack of access to capital for small businesses. Lack of job skills, and some of that is about education. Some of it is about the loss of the transfer of those job skills from one generation to another. Youth outmigration is a huge issue in all of rural North Carolina. And again, persistent poverty, all those blue blobs, the Tier 1 counties. We have 10 persistent poverty counties in North Carolina, and all of them are in tribal communities. Next slide. Social justice issues. We don't have enough slides to say all the social justice issues that tribal communities have experienced for way longer than any of us have been around. Discrimination, low educational attainment is a function, and that's getting worse with the disinvestment by the state in educational systems. Political disengagement and disenfranchisement, poor health, lack of access to land, capital, and resources. Next slide. So I'll give quickly a couple of examples of projects that are where we have worked with a community group to help them implement something that was really important to them, that they saw as a triple bottom line solution to a problem they were seeing. The Little Willie Center in Pitt County saw that young people were losing their connections to land and to food and some of the food traditions. They had some land, so they were able to, with funding from us, they have cultivated 4 acres of cucumbers. They have the young youth and the elders working together to teach the youth how to clean and slice the cucumbers, to learn how to can and pickle them. Value-added food processing, it's connecting the young people with economic opportunity. They're learning work skills and life skills. They're gaining an appreciation for the land. They're eating healthier because those are actually really good pickles. And they are staying connected to their elders and their heritage in a way that they have never been able to before, or at least not in this current generation. Our role was that we provided funding support. We provided technical assistance, especially around helping them with the USDA certification process, which took about 23 calls to the USDA and a lot of time on hold. And we've helped them connect with resources. Next slide. Out in Western North Carolina, we gave a small grant to the Western Carolina University for a special program they did. It was a summer learning program for students who were the first generation in their families to go to college. This was the summer between their senior year in high school and their freshman year in college. And what they did was the students were able to plan and carry out a bicycle trip that took them all the way through North Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, following the Underground Railroad routes. They learned about biology, ecology, sociology, history, social justice on the trip. They were in much better shape at the end of the trip, which ended in Washington, D.C. And our role in that was we provided funding and connection to resources, including some connections to bicycle manufacturers and bicycle shops that were able to help them with that trip. Next slide. And then finally, the final example. Those of you who were at our grassroots convening last year heard about this, but this is a huge issue, as everybody knows. Land ownership is power. And we as a conservation group have access to resources and to techniques that can help advance land ownership. In this particular case, McIntosh Seed is an African American community group in coastal Georgia. We had purchased 1,150 acres of working forest that they were very interested in purchasing from us. We were able to sell a conservation easement on the property since it is in the buffer around Fort Stewart, one of the largest military army installations east of Mississippi. We not only sold a conservation easement on it, but we made it a bargain sale so that they now own 1,150 acres or $1.6 million worth of land that they were able to purchase for less than $700,000. They are managing that forest for timber harvest. They're harvesting the timber sustainably. They are actually looking to do agroforestry, which is food production in the through the forest stands. They're propagating sweetgrass in some of the wetland habitat. Sweetgrass is used in the traditional Gullah Geechee sweetgrass baskets that are important in that region. And they're also providing outdoor education, ecotourism, and actually they're partnering with the schools to do walking trails and environmental education, and also some natural resource management skills building as a career opportunity for the students in the local schools. Our role was we acquired and sold the land to McIntosh Seed. We are helping them connect to some of the conservation agencies and resources. And we also were able to finance the purchase because, not surprising to anybody on this phone, the local community bank, when they went to talk to them about a loan for the property, they were told that they would not be able to get a loan because they did not have a track record of managing forest land, even though they are using the same consulting forester to manage the land as the Conservation Fund used. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Randy.
Hi there, everyone. So I did want to mention, and we really appreciate you, Nikki, explaining some of the wide variety of projects that you're involved in, and how they're very diverse, and they connect people to the land, to health, to economic development, to social justice, really the broad range of community interests that we were talking about earlier in the webinar. I did want to talk a little bit about our partnership to date with Resourceful Communities. As many of you know, we did, back in 2014, we had a workshop where we brought together many of you, tribal leaders from across the state, for our North Carolina Native Asset Coalition workshop. In addition to Resourceful Communities, we had a variety of state agencies and nonprofit organizations and resource partners there. It was sort of a buffet of resources, if you will, around the idea that the land is one of our biggest assets in tribal communities, and to expose tribal partners to those relationships, really. So it was an opportunity for tribes to connect with those resources, as well as for the resource partners to better connect with tribes, because we know there are gaps in those relationships across the state. In addition, we've partnered with Resourceful Communities around a USDA grant, which was able to serve 3 tribal communities in our state. That's the Waccamaw Siouan, the Meherrin, and the Coharie, around some of their initiatives around cultural tourism that connects to the land, whether that was powwows, whether it was marketing for kayaking, for example, or walking trails. So that's been very impactful in those communities. And also, as I mentioned before, we are going to be hosting a variety of meetings where you'll get to meet with these ladies again face to face. and hopefully even attend some of their grassroots convenings that they have that are open to people far and wide across the state to gather. But we do know that it's important to have a tailored conversation, right, with our tribal leaders and your unique needs, and an opportunity for you to talk about those nuances of how tribes are different when it comes to land and the complexities related to land and some of your issues that you're addressing. So we are going to be creating some of those workshops together in the coming year, particularly through 2017. You're gonna get a chance to meet them in person as well as hear about them through webinars. Yes. Now I'll turn this over to Donna now.
Okay, before I go through the last couple of slides, Kathleen is going to talk just a few minutes about our SNF grant.
I just wanted to mention real quickly, we will open a full new grant cycle this coming fall of 2016. And we announce all of our trainings and grant cycles and lots of other resources on our Facebook page, which you can find at facebook.com/resourcefulcommunities. We will also launch a smaller grant cycle this springtime. We have some limited funding for smaller grants totaling $5,000 that really do target United Methodist churches. So if you're partnering with any United Methodist churches, or if any of your tribal community members are connected with United Methodist churches, we encourage you to connect with us. That's related to the Faith and Food initiative that Ricky mentioned just a little earlier. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that, and Donna's going to tell you a little bit more and give you some more connections.
I just wanted to talk for a minute. The photo there that you see is from our last year's grassroots convening, where we focused on land preservation. And this was a representation of some of the tribal communities that were present. We invite you to like us on Facebook. Also, I wanted to mention that we have our spring workshops coming up. The first one, March 22nd in Whitaker's, unfortunately is already full, but we do invite you to register for the April 5th workshop in Asheville. I just wanted to mention that we do pay for, give a mileage allowance. We do pay for all lodging and all meals. Upon the ending of this webinar, we will provide information to Randy that she will get back to you on how to register for the April 5th workshop. And I want you to save the date for May 24th and 25th, our grassroots convening. This will be our 20th grassroots convening and the celebration of Resourceful Community's 25th anniversary. So we hope to party. So we hope you'll stay on the lookout for information coming from me about the grassroots convening, and we really hope that you all will attend. Again, just a reminder, like us on Facebook. We do post a lot of information about resources, funding opportunities, and things of that nature. So we look to see you on Facebook. Thanks so much.
And I will say, if you notice, if you can see the picture that was in the previous slide, we did have a couple of our tribal partners featured there. It was Greg Jacobs from the Coharie tribe, as well as Philip Bell, who's been very active in restoring the Great Coharie River. And then we had Vivette Jeffries Logan from the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. And so I know that they would be happy to talk with you as well about their experiences of working with resourceful communities. I know they've had a lot of positive experiences. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And thank you all so much to our community partners for participating in today's webinar. Again, we'll be sending out a summary of some of the resources and events that have been talked about today from resourceful communities. And we do encourage you to reach out to them. They are available. We trust them. We have a great relationship with them. You can contact them directly. We'll be sharing their contact information. Or you can, of course, always reach out to the American Indian Center, and we can discuss whatever your question may be, and we can get in touch with the right folks here. They have some great skills and offerings mentioned today, and so we do want you to take advantage of those. And once again, thank you to Mickey, thank you Donna, Ricky, Kathleen, and Jasmine for all that you've done and the knowledge and the skills that you've shared with the Healthy Native North Carolinians Network. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions before we sign off? Thank you.